Hey folks, Colin here from Sumthins Recording, and today I'm going to show you how to EQ drum overheads in just 3 simple steps. We're going to be looking at how to EQ drum overheads today, but before we dive in, if you are looking to dial in a repeatable workflow for cranking out professional sounding drum mixes, then you need to go through my 3-step framework for mixing drums workshop. This workshop is going to walk you through the simple 3-step process that I go through on almost every single one of my mixes to help you get professional sounding drum mixes right from your home studio. It is a 100% free to watch, on-demand video training, and you can get access to that by clicking the link below in the video description. Now let's jump in here and take a look at EQing overheads. So let me start by playing you the finished drum mix here for this song so you can hear how the overheads fit into the drum kit as a whole, so you can hear how the cymbals and the hi-hat and everything fits in together, and then we'll hone in on just our overhead mics here. So here's our finished drum mix for this song. So you can hear our overheads are very clean, very polished sounding. That's usually what I'm going for with overhead mics. I want a good picture of the kit to begin with, and I want to make it very clean and very smooth sounding. I don't want it to be very aggressive. I don't want it to get out of hand, because cymbals, if you start to push into a compressor or put distortion on or something on your overheads, it can get very crunchy sounding and very harsh sounding very, very quickly. I like to keep the overheads very clean and be able to pull them up as a support system for the kick, the snare, the toms, what have you. So let's hone in here on our EQ. You can see there's 3 moves. Those are our 3 steps. So let's take off our 2 moves up here and start with just our first move. Step 1 for EQing overheads is just removing the bottom end, or more specifically, rolling off some of the kick drum. For me, I like to kick drum to come from one area on the drum kit, meaning it just comes from the kick drum, right? I don't want bottom end coming from the overheads and from the kick drum, because then those 2 areas are going to fight with each other. We'll get some phase issues as we process things differently. I don't want to have that fight, that kind of battle going on in my mix. I want the low end, the kick drum, just to be coming from the kick mics, and then I want any kind of room sound or anything, maybe some kit picture, to be coming from the overheads, right? I don't want any bottom end coming from the overheads. So we're going to roll that off first to clean up our drum sound here. So take a listen without the high pass and then with. You can hear it clears up a lot of room in the bottom end for our kick to occupy, and it clears up our overheads, right? It cleans up our overhead sound a little bit as well, but mainly, so let me hit play one more time here without the high pass filter. Look where our frequencies are for our kick drum. So our kick frequencies here on our overheads are sitting at like 50 and below, and then up here at like 120, 130. But if we go over to our kick drum here, you can see we're boosting 80 because that's where our fundamental is. But 80 is nowhere to be found on our overheads. That's why we want to roll off that bottom end area, so we're not confusing our low end sound on our kick drum, right? Our kick drum's fundamental that we're boosting on our kick drum is at 80 hertz. And then if suddenly on our overheads we're adding 130 and we're adding 50, we're going to get some phase issues because there's a dip here at our fundamental. So instead of fighting that battle, we're going to roll it off and keep our overheads clean in the bottom end. So now that we've cleaned up our bottom end, let's move our focus to the low mids and the mid range here on the overheads. The next thing that I want to do, step number 2 on EQing overheads, is getting rid of the muddiness in the mid-range. So we're up at about 400 hertz here, and I'm going to pull out about 5 dB here. Listen to how it clears up the sound on our overheads, okay? It's like pulling a blanket off our drum sound overall here. So I'm going to start without this cut, then I'll put it in, and I'll boost up so you can hear the area that we're focusing in on here. So this move for me here in the mid-range gets rid of all that nasalness and that kind of mid-range forward sound. When you have all this mid-range forward sound, it tends to make your overheads sound more like room mics rather than overheads. So we pull out this 400 hertz, that kind of nasally, muddy mid-range forward energy, reducing it by about 5 dB. It cleans up our overheads in the mid-range, and it helps them feel more like a picture of the kit rather than back room mics. So listen one more time, without and then with this cut at 400 hertz. It actually feels like it adds more body to our overhead sound because we're reducing all of this area here that we don't need. By taking out a chunk of the mid-range, we leave more room for the low mids, so like this 200 hertz area where the fundamental on our snare is, and of course we make room for the top end, which is where we're going next. So far, step number 1, removing the bottom end that we don't need on our overheads to clean up the bottom end, clear up room for our kick drum. Step number 2 is removing mid-range energy, so any kind of muddiness or nasal sound on our overheads to make sure it's a clean overhead sound, and we get some more fullness here in the low mids as well. Step number 3 is boosting top end, whether it's for shine, for brightness on the cymbals, or sometimes it can be for more clarity or more attention on the hi-hat here. So take a listen. We're doing a boost at about 5.5K here. It's a dB.5 boost, and this is gonna help us get a more distinct sound off of our hi-hat. So it's giving us some focused energy here on our cymbal sounds. So take a listen without this boost here, and then with. So you can see even when we hit that cymbal hit at the end, that's where our cymbal energy is. So we're bringing up some of that. It gives us some brightness on our cymbals, but mainly what I was going for here is that kind of focus on the hi-hat. It helps our hi-hat feel a little bit tighter, and it gives it some extra energy to sit better with the snare drum in our overheads. Overall, we're going for a more balanced picture of the kit here, albeit while reducing some of the kick sound here. So those are our 3 steps. Let's listen to our EQ overall on our overhead mics here. So before and then after. It's a very clean and clear picture of the drum kit. No muddiness, no nasal sound, and we get some brightness and some attention up on the top end. So let's throw it into our drum kit here one more time. We'll listen to our drums as a whole, and we'll come back to our overheads before and after here with our overhead EQ. Just 3 steps to EQing your overheads here, reducing some of the bottom end, so clearing up room for your kick drum to be as powerful as it can be, cleaning up the mid-range here, so getting rid of that muddiness and that nasalness in the low mids and the mid-range, and then adding some brightness and some focus for the cymbals up on the top end. I hope that was helpful for you. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, if you're ready to take your drum mixes to the next level, then you need to go through my 3-step framework for Mixing Drums Workshop. You can click the link below in the description to get free access to this video training, and it will help you develop a repeatable workflow for cranking out professional sounding drum mixes. Thank you so much for watching today, and I will see you in the next video.